Yes, it's time for Power Rankings in May. Our post-draft Power Rankings here on ESPN.com are out today. I'm Dan Graziano here with Mike Sando and Kevin Seifert to break it all down for you. The team at the top is, of course, the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. We left them there unanimously, even though they probably won't win the Super Bowl because it's been 10 years since a team won back-to-back Super Bowls, and most Super Bowl champions don't even make the playoffs again the next year. But we can talk about the Seahawks all day. Everybody knows what they're about. I'm more interested to know what happened at 2 and 3. I put the San Francisco 49ers in Seattle's division at number 2 and the Denver Broncos number 3. Mike Sando, you agreed with me on that. But Kevin Seifert, you flipped it, and you have the Broncos rated number 2 and the 49ers number 3. What went into that decision for you?
Well, I just snuck a peek at your guys' ballots and switched it around so that we could have something to talk about. No, I like, I thought the 49ers were really good at the end of the year, obviously, probably the second best team. But I think the Broncos made had a great offseason, filled a lot of holes. Their defense got a lot better, from Aqib Talib and on down. And I think that Peyton Manning's now going to be 2-3 years away from that arm injury. Should be even more effective. And I think they were very close last year. I mean, the Super Bowl was a disaster for them, but they were clearly, to me, one of the top 2 or 3 teams last year and improved their team. So that's kind of what went into my thought process.
I just thought there was such a big difference physically in the Super Bowl that some of it had to do with, I think, the Broncos' injuries, but the defense that is played in that division that Seattle's in is off the charts. And I think Arizona by the end of last season would have been a really tough game for Denver, and certainly Carolina would have been with their defense. So I think there's a little bit of a gap there at the top between the conferences. And I do think, though, I agree with Kevin a little bit that I think Denver, had a good off season and will be healthier. That was a big part of their problem late last season.
DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, key additions on defense there for the Broncos. The Cardinals did do very well, coming number 8 in our rankings. The number 10 team intrigued me, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is an 11-win division champion, lost in the first round of the playoffs, obviously, but 4 of our 6 voters rated them in the top 10, and 2 rated them well outside of it, including you, Kevin, who had the Bengals at number 19. Now, I didn't have a hard time for me putting them in the top 10. I believe I had them number 7. But you had some good reasons, I think, for being a little more skeptical about their ability to make the playoffs for what would be a 4th year in a row.
And I guess I can't say I forgot about him and just put him in at the last second there. No, you look at a team with lost both their coordinators. I mean, that's huge, and they were good coordinators. I mean, Jay Gruden has gotten a lot of credit for how good Andy Dalton has even become. And I know there's a lot of criticism about Andy Dalton's long-term future, but you talk to a lot of people around the league, and you say Gruden's the guy who maxed him out. He coached him up as much as could possibly happen, and leaves a big challenge on Hugh Jackson's plate to just match what Jay Gruden did. And Mike Zimmer is probably one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. He's now the Minnesota Vikings head coach, and I think that's a huge loss as well. And I think the personnel remains very good there, but the coaching has been just as big of a part of their run here in the past few years.
Defensively, losing Zimmer, even though Marvin Lewis is a defensive-minded head coach, I maybe buy that. I think offensively, there's a lot of debate in Cincinnati over whether that's the case, Kevin. I mean, I think people felt like Jay Gruden's default position was to throw the ball too much. And Andy Dalton, not a bad quarterback, but he's not one of the very best ones who's going to carry your team. And so there's a real excitement there in Cincinnati that Hugh Jackson, who, by the way, had really good offensive success when he was in Oakland for that season. Remember when Jason Campbell was his starter? They didn't have great talent, but they did fairly well. That he's going to make them more of a running team. Notice that in the draft it looked that way too, and take some pressure off of Andy Dalton and maybe be better offensively. There is a feeling around the league that Hugh Jackson's very, very sharp offensively, and his style, his personality may not be for everybody, but from a football X's and O's standpoint, he's outstanding. So maybe they're a little bit better on the offensive side than we might think from afar.
Bengals possible candidate for a 2013-14 playoff team to miss this year's playoffs. The Carolina Panthers, another team that tumbled down the rankings a bit. Mike Sando, in 15 seconds or less, give me a team that didn't make the playoffs last year that you think is a strong candidate to do it this year.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are a team to me based on the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is a good quarterback, but just looking at some things in their schedule, I think it could fall their way this season and give them a good chance to get back.
Steelers in the Bengals division. How about you, Kevin? You got a team like that?
How about the Chicago Bears? A really good offense last year, defense that they've certainly made some strides in free agency and focused on pretty hard in the draft, and were one Aaron Rodgers 40-yard touchdown pass away from being in the playoffs last year. So off the top of my head, I'll go with the Bears.
Bears blew it late. I like the Cardinals, even though they're in that tough division. I'm a Bruce Arians believer. I think Carson Palmer will play better in the second year in that offense. But that is all the time we have for May Power Rankings. We will be back at you as we get closer to the start of the NFL regular season this summer and fall. In the meantime, keep it locked right here on ESPN.com for all your NFL news and notes.